I feel like this topic is a lot darker than previous video topics I've covered in the past, but I do still feel like it's deeply important to cover, especially when we're all currently going through this strange stage in society where things are getting more difficult for more and more people. One class of people are seen constantly benefiting and rising more, while the other class of people still continue to struggle. And it doesn't really help when social media is involved in the mix. Oh, social media, where would we all be without you? I feel like social media has really ramped up the constant display of wealth into our faces a lot more over the years, in my personal opinion. And I know I say it time and time again, but social media really gives us constant access to people's lives. But not just any version of their life, but rather a carefully curated version of people's lives that tends to weigh heavily on people who don't yet have that. And I get it, I fully do. I speak from experience when I say that seeing that kind of content has mentally affected me so much to the point that money and success are what constantly flood my mind on a daily basis. When you're in a position where you're not where you want to be yet, and you're constantly exposed to other people having the things that you desperately want, it can be hard to come to terms with the fact that people only really share the positive parts of their lives online most of the time. It never even crosses your mind to consider the effort or hard work it took for someone to get something. And I'm not just talking about material things, but even certain experiences or opportunities too. Envy just clouds your thoughts, and all you can think about is what the other person has and how much you just want it for yourself. If you're in a situation like this where all you spend most of your time doing is looking at a particular celebrity, influencer, person, or even friend, and you're just stuck obsessing over the good things going on in their life, then this video could be helpful to watch. I don't know about you, but I have always been pretty interested in topics concerning the wealth gap, rich people, celebrity idolization, and generational wealth, and so much more. Topics like these or other topics relating to them have always been the kind of discussions I'd love talking about, but people in my personal life don't really tend to like discussing about it for some reason, which is why I love bringing them to my channel here. Trust me, I've been there before, and that's why I've made this video to explore these emotions further. And speaking of channel, hello lovely people. If you're new to the channel, then I'd love to welcome you to Orchid Whispers, a digital diary where I yap and talk about whatever interests me at the moment, or any of the things I've been pondering deeply about. I hope life has been treating you all well so far. Today, I wanted to talk about this topic simply because I understand how it feels to be in this position where you're so utterly consumed by someone else's life to the point that you develop envious feelings over time. Some people might find it shameful to ever admit to feeling this way because everyone shuns having a parasocial relationship with someone. I mean, who would ever want to openly admit that, right? But I feel like talking about this deeply and getting you to open up your perspective on parasocial relationships and envy. I feel like being open about this topic could be helpful to some people in the long run, especially in a society like ours where everyone keeps flaunting their wealth in our faces while the majority of society struggles with the current state of the economy and rising unemployment. So let's just get straight into it. When people hear the word parasocial relationships online, it often comes with negative connotations. We think of some creepy incel guy in his basement stalking an attractive girl he found online, believing that somehow he and she were destined to be together forever. But they don't exactly tend to work that way. A parasocial relationship can even be a young girl looking up to her favorite celebrity or influencer and going into debt, trying to copy every single one of their outfits and mimicking their mannerisms. Parasocial relationships can happen to absolutely anyone and at any time. Sometimes you wouldn't even realize that it's even happening. A parasocial relationship is simply a one-sided emotional relationship or bond with people you don't actually know. And this type of relationship creates a sense of familiarity, intimacy, and connection even when the other person doesn't know you exist. According to a Cleveland Clinic article, Dr. Borland says that parasocial relationships are simply more than just being a fan. and that these kind of relationships often include a strong one sided feeling of identification and emotional connection. Most people would be pretty familiar with the emotional connection aspect of this, but I want to really focus more on the identification aspect in this video because I think it really connects to the envious feelings I mentioned early in this video. A lot of creators are encouraged to come across as more authentic to their audience since we've been so used to dealing with the overly polished, manufactured fake personas online. So, in turn, audiences have now started to value vulnerability, behind the scene moments, and personal stories because it feels more genuine. But the authenticity can blur the line between creator and friend. Algorithms also strengthen these relationships. The more you watch someone and become a fan of them, the more their content appears in your feed, creating feelings that are constantly present in your life. In addition to this, the more someone shares about their daily life, struggles, and relationships, the easier it becomes for their viewers to feel like they truly knew them, even though the relationship is entirely one sided. With this new wave in social currency of trying to be more authentic, people just don't simply like creators. We can see ourselves in them and become emotionally invested in them. We become attached to creators because they represent the person we'd like to become or have the lifestyle we aspire to have. There's no doubt that social media and the internet make it easier than ever to form parasocial relationships, especially in a generation like ours where the majority of people have no identity, no sense of self, and just follow the crowd in quite literally any trend that gains something popularity. Well, maybe it might be too harsh to say no identity, but that's the energy it gives most of the time. Young people online will be quick to ask, what are we wearing for the winter or summer? Rather than simply wearing what makes them happy. People will comment on others' posts asking for the link for their outfits, and the moment the other person doesn't respond, they are immediately labeled as being fake, not a girl's girl, or even a pick me in some cases. The point is, a lot of young people are growing up and at this stage are struggling with forming their own identity and sense of self. They're experimenting with different styles, interests, and communities, which makes sense because that's the phase in their life where they're trying to discover themselves. But the difference lies in whether discovering themselves completely relies on the online world. If discovering your identity totally and completely relies on an algorithm that constantly rewards imitation and trends and makes it much harder to distinguish your genuine self expression from social influence, then it can become damaging in the long run. Instead of asking, what do I genuinely like? It becomes, what are people like me supposed to like? Identity slowly shifts from something that's discovered through experience into something that's assembled from other people's lives or even through aesthetics. As much as everyone wants to come online and preach about having your own personal swag, or how much being a whimsy girl is better than being basic or nonchalant or whatever is the new term online, a lot of people simply just struggle with their identity and get interested in certain things as a way to be validated online. That's where parasocial relationships become influential. If you admire and become a fan of someone, you don't just start consuming their content, you start consuming their opinions, consuming their style, their routines, their vocabulary, or mannerisms, and even their worldview. At some point, it becomes difficult to tell whether you're expressing yourself or simply reflecting someone else. Younger people will leap into copying their fave's hairstyle, tattoos, or clothing, sometimes even buying or getting the exact same thing as the other person they look up to, so that they can feel some sort of significance. And while it isn't a bad thing to be inspired and take inspiration, having a parasocial relationship with a celebrity or influencer, or a random girl on the internet, means that some people can tend to take it to the extreme. It kind of worries me because I feel like parasocial relationships is now becoming the perfect formula to market things to people, which is dangerous. Algorithms convince us that identity can be found through the overconsumption of another. And listen to me when I say that consumption to find your identity isn't wrong, but overconsumption is harmful. Knowing and immediately buying someone else's wardrobe or skincare or makeup products doesn't necessarily bring you any closer to understanding yourself. It's all very weird, and it's a difficult position to be in for both people. And that's me speaking as someone who's been on both ends of the spectrum. But even with my own tainted experiences, I still have the belief that parasocial relationships aren't inherently unhealthy. It just depends on the way you manage these feelings and behaviors. Sometimes, when I look at certain influencers, artists, and celebrities that I like, I can end up forming a parasocial relationship with them, and that could very well be the thing that makes me feel inspired by them and what they do. Their presence can comfort me, and they can even introduce me to new ideas and perspectives that I never even thought about and motivate me to get my own life together. But there are times when that can be deeply toxic too. When I look at them and I feel a deep seated envy for what they have, the money, the beauty, the talent, the clothes, success, freedom, and even their lifestyle, that becomes unhealthy for me. I'm pretty certain that everyone has felt envy at some point in their life, but I feel like the thing that people forget is that envy points you in the direction of what you want for yourself. Envy is just inspiration and desire. People struggle with converting that inspiration and desire into their own thing in their life. It's very easy to be a sheep and copy exactly what your faves are doing, or even hate on them for it. But the massive harm that results from that is having your personality, identity, and potential stunted. I don't actually think parasocial relationships are the main problem. It's still an issue for sure, but I think the envy could be the main one in a way. For me, the way I see it is parasocial relationships just act as a host and give envy somewhere to attach itself to. Now, in this section of the video, let's talk more about envy and its effects relating to parasocial relationships. In everyday cases of envy, you might be envious of a successful stranger. Maybe you see someone driving a nice car, landing their dream job, or showing off their relationship online, whatever the case may be. You might compare yourselves to them for a moment, then ultimately just move on because they're just another person passing through your life. In a parasocial relationship, when there's envy involved in the mix, it works a little differently. The person you're comparing yourself to doesn't feel like a complete stranger. After watching hundreds of hours of their content, following their milestones, and hearing them share stories about their life, your brain starts to treat them as someone familiar. And that familiarity can make the comparison feel much more personal and much more harder to switch off. Speaking from experience, those envious feelings can become pretty all consuming, especially when aspects of your life are the complete opposite of theirs. Parasocial envy can often feel stronger than just regular envy, because your brain has accumulated so much highly curated information of this person. It is a carefully curated window into their world, and it will never ever be the full picture. You're not seeing all parts of their lives. You only see the parts of their life that they choose to share, the positive parts they flaunt, and you just want to emulate that. When your parasocial relationship is rooted in identification, as Dr. Borland mentioned, you can feel a lot of upward social comparison when you watch them. For example, you could feel deeply envious of the fact that you and the person you look up to are the same age, but they already have the success, relationship, or life that you want. It no longer feels inspiring and instead just becomes this giant reflection of everything you're not, especially when you feel like their success path feels impossible, unattainable, or even unfair. Because you deeply identify with them, seeing their successes can give you the sense that you're falling behind when life doesn't actually really work that way. It's easy to assume that if you made the same decisions they did, you'd end up in the same place. But you don't see the countless factors that shape their journey, such as luck, timing, opportunity, privilege, relationships, or circumstances outside of anyone's control. And it sucks because people should be granted special opportunities in their life to succeed, but the reality is that people don't all begin from the same starting line. Some people just got it easy like that. Some people grow up fortunate enough and lucky enough to have the financial security, connections, and wealth, and that's just the way it is for them. They get handed things in life on a silver platter. Sometimes it sucks, but we just have to accept that people have an easier life than most others. But the problem is, if people aren't willing to reflect on their envy, it can evolve into something very destructive to both parties. It opens doors to a lot of negativity, such as rooting for the creator's downfall, hate watching, toxic comparison, impersonation, resentment of wealth, putting yourself through financial difficulties to have the same things that they have, imitating them in unhealthy ways, obsessive online stalking, perceived unfairness about their life or their wealth, and so much more. Aggressive digital subcultures can also increase due to this, and these include active participation in smart communities, cancel culture weaponization, physical stalking, or even sometimes direct harassment or assault in some cases. Of course, most people who experience parasocial envy will rarely engage in behaviors like this, but when envy is left unexamined and combines with obsession, entitlement, and constant comparison, it turns very dark very quickly. So, how do we deal with it? Down the line, if left unchecked, these behaviors can generally become pretty harmful for both parties, as I said before. The constant comparison, resentment, and obsession gradually erode the way you see yourself and the world around you. I feel like as long as people are hooked and deeply engaged in social media, this problem will only continue to grow worse over time. Since the change with COVID and everyone being more online than ever since the lockdown, I personally feel like the way we engage in social media culture has really changed a lot. It's made all these tendencies easier to fall into. A lot of people are much bolder and meaner, and no one really holds back on their thoughts, feelings, or judgments about a particular topic or discussions. More people have also started to normalize some weird behavior towards strangers online. Behaviors that were once seen as invasive, perverse, obsessive, or inappropriate are now sometimes even being treated as entertainment or encouraged by online communities. And personally, I only see it getting more and more worse as time goes on. I know a lot of people try to start that trend of trying to be more offline or analog, but I personally felt like the whole thing was a performative trend for most people to seem cool or niche. As much as I hate to say it, I feel like the only people who could benefit from going offline and having the privilege and means to stay offline are celebrities or well known influencers in some cases. The people who have strong support systems that allow them to engage in the real world in a privileged way. For everyone else, disappearing from the internet isn't always a realistic or sustainable option. Some people rely on the internet for income or opportunities. Some people rely on it for escapism from their abusive households, have more friends online compared to real life, or lack the third spaces where they can connect authentically with people, etc., etc. At the end of the day, our lives are plugged into the online world to some extent, so I don't think the solution is to simply go offline, but instead build a healthier relationship with the online world. This can look like curating your feed, blocking the people who bring out these strong emotions from you, and putting more energetic investment into real life. If you are someone harboring such intense emotions about another person you're parasocial over, I also think you need to be honest with yourself and recognize when your admiration has turned into comparison or obsession. You need to ask yourself deeper questions about what you're looking for from certain celebrities, influencers, or online creators. What do you feel like is actually missing from your own life? Parasocial envy towards a public figure isn't actually about them, it's about you. The person is just the canvas that you project your hopes, insecurities, and unmet needs onto. Once you understand what you're actually longing for, you can stop chasing someone else's life and start building your own. Maybe what you truly want isn't their wardrobe or their relationship or their success. Maybe what you're really searching for is confidence, purpose, belonging, financial security, or a stronger sense of identity. Those are things that can't be bought by copying another person's life. They have to be built through your own. And sometimes, this will have to involve rejecting the temptation or the need for instant gratification. Buying the same clothes, following the same routine, or copying someone else's lifestyle may make you feel closer to becoming them for a moment. But it is simply just a cosplay. The lasting confidence and fulfillment comes from slowly creating a life that's genuinely your own. It's not going to be easy, but you genuinely have to want this for yourself. Only you have the true power to make the healthy decisions to change your life. If you are the person who is experiencing someone else being parasocial towards you, there are a few things you can do. The most important thing you have to understand is you aren't responsible for controlling their feelings or managing their emotions. However, you can control your boundaries and how much emotional access they have to you. Setting boundaries as early as you can is so key, especially if you're growing online. You don't have to feel obligated to follow back or respond to all their messages or explain your personal life. You can keep your personal details and information to yourself or a close circle and maintain your privacy while still appreciating the audience you're building. Talking about them more to people online can start to create or strengthen the illusion of intimacy and closeness with the other person, which is what feeds the parasocial relationship in the first place. Most importantly, you have to remember that setting boundaries is not cold or ungrateful. A healthy relationship with your audience always requires some sort of distance, and you have full permission to disappoint your audience if it means taking better care of your energetic boundaries. You can be kind without constantly being available, and you can care about your community without giving them unlimited access to your personal life. And that pretty much sums my thoughts for this topic for now. I might make more deeper reflection videos about this or relating to this if I feel called to, but if you made it to the end of the video, I would just like to say a big thank you for making it this far. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and respectfully share your own thoughts and opinions about this topic down below in the comments section. And I'll catch you in the next video.